Hello. Hi there. And welcome to Virtually Gorton. Um, and you are watching At Home Experiments with Noggin Builders. I am Dave from Noggin Builders. I'll probably repeat that a bunch of times if we get people watching live or if you're rewatching. Awesome. Thanks for watching. And we're very, very excited to bring this to you. We're going to do an at-home experiment with boats. You might have seen something, the at-home boat regatta or boat build or boat design, and you are in the right place for that. So let's get started. Hi. So let's get started right away. I've got some materials right here that I've found around my house. You can do this out of any materials that you deem safe to go into water. And you can experiment. You can see all sorts of cool things. For example, some of the materials that you might see around your house, that you might have cardboard. We might have big boxes of it. You can cut it down into smaller pieces. They are great. I've got some string in case I need to tie anything to my boat or if I want decorations on my boat. I also have some rubber bands, which are awesome for holding things together. And tape is great for holding things together, but if you know tape, you know that a lot of the tape will fall off when it gets too saturated with water. It'll kind of wash away the adhesive and it'll fall off. But obviously tape is great at holding things together. I've got some paper clips and I've got some straws. Straws are awesome when we're building boats. They're great to make masts out of, or you can even make the whole boat out of that. I've got some aluminum foil. I have some already made boats that I was playing around with before I even started. And I even have some toys that I found around my house that can be passengers on your boat. Now, since this is an experiment, you're going to be able to test out and try lots of different things, right? Because that's what an experiment is. We ask ourselves a question, and then we try something, and then we see what we like about it, what we didn't like about it, and we might change something about that design. So the way I always like to get started with a boat is thinking about the materials that I would use as the biggest part of the boat first. If I'm building a car, I may not start with the cup holders. I'm probably going to start with the body and the chassis of the car. Well, the boat is very, very similar. You can build the base of your boat out of lots of different things, which is very, very exciting. If I have a piece of cardboard, this is a great surface to start my boat. It might be as a raft, and then I might build off of that. And that could be very, very exciting. The thing about cardboard, though, cardboard is paper, right? Thick paper with corrugated paper inside of it. And we know what happens to paper when it gets into water. It gets very, very soggy and it kind of crumbles and falls apart. And I have aluminum foil. I can make my base out of the aluminum foil, but the aluminum foil doesn't like to float at the top. It'll sit at the top of the water, but it tends to sink inside of it. So I may want to test something out right now. I want to find out what's a great base for my boat. So I'm going to need to take some of these and put them into water. If you have a bowl at home or a big bucket at home you can fill with water. If not, you can just use a little bit of water in your sink or your bathtub and close the drain and get some water in it there. If you're lucky enough to be by like a lake or a pond or have a swimming pool in your backyard you can borrow for this. Any of those would be great sources. Even if you have a little small cup of water, you can build a small enough boat to go inside there. So I've got a tub of water here, and I'm first going to just test out what these things are going to do in the water. If my whole boat is made out of something, I'm going to want to see it in the water first, right? So if I take the aluminum foil, I know I can place that on the water, right? I can even kind of press it down and it'll sit on the water. It's not sinking to the bottom, but it's not really pushing up like something like the duck would be, right? The duck is filled with air and it's sitting at the top. But the aluminum foil, if I push it down, it's going to push in pretty easily. So the things I can put on an aluminum foil base might not be the heaviest of objects. If I try the cardboard floats very, very well. You test this at home, very, very well, but again, it soaks through, and that boat's not going to last very long, right? The more water it takes into it, the less it likes to stay at the top. It likes to fall over. I also have some craft sticks that I've been fashioning into a little base as well. And you notice all of these ones kind of look like rafts. And that's okay. That's a place to start. If you have a nice flat surface, that's excellent. And craft sticks, we know, are made out of wood. Wood floats very, very well. So I place that on top. That floats excellent. Anything else I could look around and I can test. I can test some paper, thin piece of paper. We might know what's going to happen with that. But we can test out all of these different things, and we can pick and choose. We don't have to choose just one, right? You're going to have to make lots of different things. In fact, you might finish a whole boat and test it, and then notice, oh, it brought on a little bit of water, and the water seeped through. I've got to start all over. Awesome, start all over. You can make as many of these as you can and you want. So the one thing I noticed about mine was all of these things were soaking in, but they all worked pretty well. So I'm wondering how I can make these work together. So I'm going to take a cardboard square, and I'm going to take an aluminum foil. I'm going to wrap it inside there. And this will allow me to do two things. Number one, it'll allow me to cover the cardboard so that no water can go in. It'll be like a little shield for it. And two, aluminum foil is malleable. You can move it and shape it, and it'll hold its shape. And I can even force a little bit of extra wiggle room outside of my base to build up walls, which are really important in building a boat, because the difference between a raft and a boat is really walls, right? We don't want my little squeaky ducky to fall off my boat. So I'm going to cover it, but I'm going to leave extra wiggle room for a little wall on either side of it. I've seen some people make these out of wax paper as well. And I love building with wax paper. It doesn't hold its shape as well as the aluminum foil, but the wax paper also pushes away the water, which is very important when you're building a boat. I'm going to build my boat. It's starting to look like leftover dinner. That's okay. And my boat is square because my cardboard was square. But obviously, when you see a boat on the water, it doesn't look like a square. It usually looks like some sort of cup. So if you put your two hands together, it'll look like it's going to cut through the water. So if you want to emulate that shape, you can bend your cardboard. You can leave your cardboard out. You can cut the cardboard inside to create a different shape for it. All sorts of things. Now, my walls are not very tall. That could be problematic if I have heavy things in there that push into the water, and then more water will get on board and it'll sink the whole thing. So if I've got my base like that, excellent. This is cardboard and aluminum foil. But as you saw, you can make it out of craft sticks. You can make it out of lots of different things. You can put it in the comments, any of these other suggestions, so that other people might read them and think, hey, I've got that around my house. I can try it, right? So if you've got your base, that's a great start. You're going to make your base, and then you're going to start building around it. You might need to add some things to it to help it out a little bit. I'm going to use these straws, and I'm actually going to attach them to the bottoms of my boat to try to keep it a little bit balanced. I'll also probably need something inside my boat when I test it so that it pushes down in the right place. Because if I leave it to its own, it's going to want to do whatever it's going to want to do. But if we put something in there that anchors it, that will be a great start. So I'm going to tape these onto the bottom here. I also just like the way it looks with straws on the bottom. You can make your whole boat or raft out of straws itself, and that could be its own design in itself. And when you're building it, it's so fun to let your imagination go. What am I going to do with this boat? Am I going to race it against my brother's boat? Am I going to see how many pennies I can put on the boat? Start thinking about the things you could do with it as you build with it. So I've built my little base, and I've got this, and I'm going to place the ducky on there. I'm going to give it a little bit of a test. If water seeps in too much, I'm going to stop it because I just want to see how it sits on the water. Place it on there. Awesome, just as I expected. If it was falling over a little bit, I'd probably have to remove the tape, move the straws around. I didn't even need to put the ducky on there, but the ducky fits perfectly. So that's one example of a base. But again, whatever you're making the boat out of is going to tell you what you're allowed to do with it, right? If I was going to make this out of plastic cups, well, I could probably move that in a certain way, but a cardboard moves a little bit different. So when you're building with the materials, experiment and have fun. It's okay to make a boat and think, I don't really like that much. That's okay. You just learned a way that you don't like something. Next time you do it, try to look for something you do like in it and keep going with it. So I have this, and this is a good enough boat. I could test this boat right now, right? It holds up. It can hold passengers on it. I can test out different weights on there, but I'm not going to be able to get this boat to move freely. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to bring back up another straw. And this can be my mast. And the mast is what's going to hold the sail up. Now, I probably don't have the materials here to get this boat to move any other way but with wind power, like a sailboat would. And I could make my sail out of aluminum foil. I could make my sail out of cardboard. I'm going to just choose to make my sail out of some paper. It's very, very light, and it should be able to catch a lot of the wind in there. And since my boat isn't very big, I don't need a very big sail. So I'm going to tape this on there, right to the center. And that's just because I don't have anything inside that boat to tell me that one side is heavier than the other. If one side was heavier than the other, I'd probably need to move my sail to a different place, because when the air pushes on it, when the wind pushes on it, it's basically pushing this and acting as a lever arm. So this wants to bend, but since it's attached, it has to all go along with it as well. And you can see I've got some water on my sail already, but that should be okay. And as easy as it is to tape things, you always get nervous when you're on camera, so that's fun. So I've got this on there, and I've got just another piece of tape to get my sail on there. And this is just one idea. You might have a million other ideas. Put them in the comments. We'd love to have some more suggestions, or some things that did or didn't work for your boat. Could be really useful for other people doing an experiment to say, oh, I see that. I really like what Jeremy did there. That looks awesome. I want to try that. Or, ooh, I see Jeremy's boat actually sank because the walls weren't tall enough, like mine. So now that I have that, I can test this out. Now, these are not big waters, right? If I wanted to really get it to move, a bathtub would be great, or even a big wide storage bucket could be really fun to have them race down to the end. You can even see it bend, right? The more it bends, probably the less stable it is. You want it to be really tight there so it's responsive. When it pushes the top of it, it can automatically respond rather than push and lean and then sail. So once you have that, you have a sailboat. Awesome. You can test it out. You can test it out for speed. How fast does it go? You can test it out for strength. How many things can I carry on there? You can test it out for how long you think it will last in the water. That's a pretty easy one, right? Test the other things, put it in the water, and just set a timer. Check on it every 15 minutes and see if it's still floating. If your boat can float for hours and hours and hours, that must be a pretty good designed boat, right? Because even mine, I'm guessing that some of the water after a while could get into that cardboard and try to sink my boat. And that's just one way. If I was building a boat out of just one material, I would choose the aluminum foil, though. The aluminum foil holds its shape. It's already buoyant enough to float on its own. And I can choose any shape that I want. Now, some shapes are going to work better than others. If I think of like a really silly shape, I might think of a big cylinder, right, with a point at the bottom, like an upside down volcano, like this. Now, this is a pretty silly shape, right? Because when you're building something, this is your base all the way at the bottom. So when you put that in the water, you're going to have a balance issue. So just like when you're building a house or you're building a little model car or something like that, you want to start at the bottom and build your way up. Now, you saw my first design. It was okay to have a dent at the bottom going in, as long as I had something in there to force it down. But since this one doesn't, it just wants to tip over. So that one is gone. And I try another one. Whenever you have these materials on hand, grab extra materials. The more materials you have, the more you're able to freely go through them and not worry and try to dry them off in between. So if I have aluminum foil, I can think of the shape of a boat. It might look like my hands together. And since I'm building it out of my hands, well, I can put my hands in that shape and actually build around. This is the great point. If you have a buddy, a brother, a mom, a sister that can help you, hold your hands like this and they can actually shape it around you. But since I'm all by my lonesome, I'm going to have to build this one and shape it on my own. Awesome. And for this one, since it's going in the water and it's not very heavy, I want a flatter base to it. So I've got my little football shape here. I'm going to place it in the water, and instantly I can see it tipping over just a little bit. So I'm going to put my ducky on there. Boom! I've got a boat already. So try one material at a time. Try two materials at a time. There's lots of different ways that you can challenge yourself. See if you could only make yours out of rubber bands and an index card. See what happens there. See how long it lasts. See how strong it is. You can place it on there. You can test. One test that I love to do is that strength test. I have lots of pennies here that I can like test out as well. I can see how many pennies it takes to sink my tinfoil boat. Now I have to warn you, 2, 3, 4, 5. You may need to open up your piggy bank for this because I put 5 pennies on there and my boat doesn't seem to notice. I've gotten upwards of 100 on a boat. See how high you can get on there? And you can put it in the comments. I'd love to see some crazy high numbers. See if you can get over 100 coins on there or beads on there, something very, very cool. That would be very, very impressive. You can put it on there. Anyway, that's the experiment. You can test this out at home with any of the materials that you might have on there. Some materials you might not even think about, but you're looking around and you find it, and it's perfect for your boat design. I can't wait to see a lot of these. And I hope you have fun setting sail. You can check out a lot more of this type of content at gortoncenter.org/calendar for upcoming live events and classes. And I just looked, they have some awesome ones coming up. Tomorrow they have Community Wellness Connection with Simply Be Counseling. And they have art demos for all ages with the Deer Path Art League and Periwinkle Art Studio. Both of those are very, very exciting, but they have more and more coming out for their Virtually Gordon campaign. And you should check out all of them because I'm sure they're really, really fun. Anyway, until next time, bon voyage.